Welcome back to the GCN Racing News Show. This week, Biniam Girmay of Eritrea stole the show, taking home the first ever win for the continent of Africa at Gent-Wevelgem on Sunday. We'll go through that win today and bring you all the latest from the classics in Belgium, round up Volta, Catalunya and Coppi Bartali, plus get you up to speed with all the other latest racing news and results. Let's start things off in Belgium first though, because it was a busy week with three huge classics as the season heads towards the Ronde van Vlaanderen this Sunday. Biniam Girmay perhaps the star of the show by the end of the week, but let's rewind first off to last Wednesday and the men's and women's classic Brugge-De Panne. Run on the previous day to the women, they start on Thursday. Both races culminated in a frenetic bunch sprint. Tim Merlier of Alpecin-Fenech taking home the win in the men's. High speeds in the run-in saw a number of crashes and many riders complained that racing conditions weren't safe with high levels of road furniture, tram lines, roadworks and piles of sand roadside. I've ridden this race a number of times and it is infamously sketchy, I must admit. There is nothing like racing at 60 kilometres an hour, sprinting towards the finish along with 200 other guys, while simultaneously trying not to get your front wheel stuck down one of the many tram lines. Pascal Ackermann was one of the main favourites to be put out of the running coming towards the finish. Squeezed by a Bingo Power Sources rider and left with nowhere to go, he hit the deck hard with around 1.5 kilometres to go. Lotto Soudal's Arnaud de Lee finding some sort of divine intervention to keep his bike upright and avoid a similar fate. The following day, world champion Elisa Balsamo won the classic Brugge-De Panne women, the longest women's world tour one-day race of the year at 162.8 kilometres. Balsamo dominated the final sprint after a nervous race around the flat, open terrain of West Flanders. Normally this region is known for its crosswinds, but the wind decided not to blow on the day, same as for the men's. When this happens, it can make a race so nervous and dangerous as there really is nothing to stretch out the bunch. As a result, crashes marred proceedings, a scenario similar to the men's race the previous day. It was then the turn of the E3 Saxo Bank Classic for the men on the Friday, which is traditionally a big test for those looking to win at Flanders and gives a real glimpse into who may challenge for victory in Belgium's biggest one-day race of the year. 203 kilometres long, including many of the same bergs and cobble sectors found in the Ronde. Unfortunately, Lawson Craddock's race ended before it even began, the first crash of the day taking place on the ramp down from the pre-race sign-on podium, apparently caused by a number of TV wires running along the ground. That freak accident proved to be the end of the Americans' race, unfortunately, and instead a trip to hospital for x-rays awaited. When proceedings did get going though, it was Wout van Aert who would put down an incredibly strong performance, going clear with 40 kilometres to go, attacking over the Paterberg and bringing Jumbo-Visma teammate Christophe Laporte with him. The Frenchman perhaps a little nervous about what he just got himself into for the next 40 kilometres or so. Jokes aside, a brilliant performance by Laporte too, who has proved to be a key rider in Jumbo-Visma's classic squad already this year and is on absolute fire this season. The duo would consolidate their margin gained over the Paterberg and duoed to victory. Laporte was visibly struggling to help Van Aert at times, and so it would be Van Aert who crossed the line first, although the two did celebrate together in a joint victory. Stefan Kuhn of Groupama FDJ broke away in the closing stages to take third, and an impressive result too by Eritrean Biniam Girmay in a major classic to take fifth for Intermarché Wanty Gobert. And as we said at the top of the show, it wouldn't be his last big result of the week too. Either way, two races started in Belgium, 2-1 for Van Aert so far. Gent-Wevelgem was the big billing on Sunday, 248 kilometres for the men, including 3 ascents of the Kemmelberg, including a final tackle of the Kemmel's steeper side before the run-in to the finish in Ypres, plus the tough dirt plug struts along the way too. Racing began to hot up with around 105 kilometres to go, a big crash splitting the bunch and lining things out. It would be the Kemmelberg that would prove decisive, however. Trek and Jumbo-Visma both playing a cagey game, keeping an eye on one another. Van Aert putting down the biggest attack of the day on the final ascent in a bid to go solo once more. However, he didn't quite have the same legs as in E3. He would go clear though in a group of 8, but that wouldn't stick. And as the group behind came back, Laporte launched a counter-attack with 24 kilometres to go, keeping the pressure on. Girmay followed, as did Dries van Gestel and Jasper Stuyven. This proved to be the winning move, staying clear to the finish, and Girmay was the first to sprint, going from just under 250 metres out. With the Laporte at the front, it almost looked like he'd caught the other three out slightly and got that initial jump. Either that or they simply couldn't live with the sheer kick of Girmay's sprint. Laporte tried to get back on terms but just didn't have the legs and had to settle for second, Van Gestel third. A massive win for Girmay, and you could almost see the disbelief in his celebration. Incredible win and a brilliant one to watch too. Eritrean cycling must be on a huge high on the same day that another Eritrean, Henok Mulhabrahan, won the African Continental Championships too. Girmay now returns home after 3 months away from his family to race, so we won't see him at Flanders, and I think Van Aert and the rest will be breathing a huge sigh of relief on that one too. Over to the women's race, and Elisa Balsamo took home the win once more this week after that victory in Panne. It was such an aggressive run-in after the final ascent of the Kemmel, 2 times for the women in their race, the finish coming after 159 kilometres of racing. SD Works, Colin Rebecca and Grace Brown in particular really looking to escape in the run-in, but Trek and Ellen van Dijk put on a brave display to keep the race together. There was a dangerous looking split with around 12 kilometres to go, which Balsamo was caught on the wrong side of at one point. Van Dijk actually came back and helped the chase for Trek on that one, and Balsamo repaid that effort and managed to take the win in what was an incredibly tight sprint. The world champion taking home 2 big wins during the week and putting in a big claim towards Flanders, potentially too. Leaving Belgium for Spain now in the Volta Catalunya proved to be tough World Tour racing once more for the men. The peloton saw 7 stages around the region of Catalunya in northeastern Spain, a climber stage race in terms of GC anyway. We saw an all-Australian affair throughout the first 3 stages, 3 from 3 for the Aussies. Michael Matthews took out the opening stage in a hectic bunch sprint, his first win since August 2020, quite a while by his standards. He admitted to being quite relieved to end that win drought and that he'd been watching some of his past victories on playback via YouTube to gain some inspiration. The celebrations were unfortunately muted in the finish area, however, as Sonny Colbrelli, who sprinted to second behind Matthews, suddenly collapsed. In some incredibly tense and troubling scenes, Colbrelli was attended to by paramedics who had to perform CPR before rushing the Italian to hospital. His team, Bahrain Victorious, later confirmed that Colbrelli had suffered an unstable cardiac arrhythmia, and Colbrelli himself said he feels lucky to be alive. The Italian, who won last year's Paris-Roubaix, has since been discharged from hospital and flown home to Italy for further testing at a specialist cardiac centre. We all cross our fingers and really hope you make a full recovery, Sonny. All the best in what must be incredibly difficult times. And with Colbrelli in everyone's thoughts and prayers, the race did continue into stage 2, which was won by another Australian, Caelan Groves. That was the 23-year-old's first World Tour win and the second of the race for Bike Exchange Yako. Taking the win from a reduced group of 30 after crosswinds decimated the peloton. Stage 3 won by another Australian, this time Ben O'Connor, winning the summit finish for AG2R Citroën. It was an impressive win too, going solo with around 8 kilometres remaining of the stage and holding off a select group on the decisive run-in. Juan Ayuso came in second, again showing signs of the billing he's been given from such an early age. He bested Nairo Quintana, who settled for third. O'Connor took hold of the race lead, coming into stage 4, the race's Queen's stage, after that emphatic victory. However, perhaps the previous day's effort proved too much and he would eventually crack, losing 23 seconds on the final summit finish of Boital, deep in the Pyrenees above the snowline and over 2,000 metres above sea level too. It would be Quintana who would move into the race lead, again showing that the veteran Colombian is definitely not done yet. João Almeida took victory after forging clear in the final 2 kilometres, with Quintana and Higuita dropping Richard Carapaz in the process. Stage 5 though proved to be a slight rest for the GT contenders with a bunch sprint to break up the climbing action. Ethan Vernon of Quickstep Alpha Vinyl proved to be the fastest, beating Phil Bauhaus and Dorian Gordon. While Almeida and Nairo Quintana clashed on the late intermediate sprint, however, which led to a change of leadership as a result. Almeida just edging Quintana and taking valuable bonus seconds, putting him on the top spot on GC by only 1 second. Close margins with only 2 stages to go. Although those margins would be blown away completely on stage 6. With an audacious move by Sergio Higuita and Richard Carapaz, they broke away with 130 kilometres still to race. only 3 categorised climbs greeted the riders, but with over 3,000 metres of elevation gain and torrential rain at the start, the stage was ripe for turning the GC battle on its head, and that is exactly what happened. It was Ineos's recent Australian signing, Luke Plapp, who forced the pace on the first decisive climb of the day with Carapaz. By the top, it was only the Ecuadorian and Higuita left, and they committed, riding full gas until the finish with over 3 minutes and 30-second advantage at 50 kilometres to go. The chase came, but it was too little too late, and Carapaz edged Higuita for the win. The duo, taking 48 seconds on the rest of the bunch, led home by Caden Groves. That put Higuita into the GC lead by 16 seconds over Carapaz and 52 seconds on Almeida, going into the final stage in Barcelona. Bernie Eisel had this take on the day.
Can you describe us? That was a plan this morning?
We had a plan. Our plan would have started a little bit later, but we were open. We knew somebody is going to try it on the first climb, and there will be 3 riders going up the road. I mean, with Richie Carapaz, Luke Plapp and Sergio, everybody was like, okay, this is all tactics out the window, and let's anticipate. And we give him the freedom to be Sergio Higuita, and we have seen so far also with Jai Hindley, our leaders, Wilco Kellerman, we can mention all of them, Alex Vlasov. They're super relaxed, they know what they're doing, they know what they can do, where they can attack. And that's why it's kind of easy as a sports director to work with them, because they pretty much tell you how they want the race and where it's going to happen. And like we have seen in modern cycling, is like Tadej Pogačar taking on Strade Bianche 50 k's to go, and other races get decided so early, and it looks like we're going to see this more and more. No, they're not waiting, they know how far he can go, and it was definitely an incredible day.
Interesting stuff. Is this potentially a new trend in racing? Let us know in the comment section below. The last stage in Barcelona did prove to provide some fireworks, with Almeida going all out to claw back his lead. His efforts did actually drop Carapaz at one point as he tackled the final ascent of Montjuic, a climb which the riders would take on 6 times on the final finishing circuit. With the likes of Ben O'Connor also trying their luck over the top of that final ascent and on the run into the finish with 2.5 kilometres to go. However, everything came back together and the GC would remain unchanged as a result. Andrea Baggioli would win the stage from a sprint of 20 riders up front, coming through in the closing metres and taking his 4th win of his career and his first World Tour win too to boot. Higuita took the GC, the 2nd overall classification win of his career after the 2020 Tour of Colombia, and the first World Tour classification win too. Carapaz 2nd and Almeida 3rd overall on what was a thrilling week's racing in Catalunya. We also had stage racing in Italy. Coppi Bartali saw 5 stages, mostly centred close to Rimini in the northeast of the country. A race usually dominated by hilly attacking riding. Mauro Schmidt took the opening stage, besting Ireland's Eddie Dunbar of Ineos Grenadiers in a 2-up sprint to the line. Ineos Grenadiers went on to have a very successful Coppi Bartali from there. Ethan Hayter took home stage 2, the first win of his season, and doing so put Eddie Dunbar into the race lead. Ben Tullett would then take the race's 3rd stage after a brilliant display of climbing in what would end up as a 1-2 for Ineos, with Dunbar again claiming 2nd and holding on to the race lead. That was Ben Tullett's first pro win, coincidentally, and what a fashion to do it in. Mathieu van der Poel won stage 4, showing he really is getting back to his best at the right moment, ahead of Flanders next week after back problems hampered the start to his season. The Dutchman took home the sprint after some aggressive riding earlier in the day, putting himself in the early breakaway, which was caught with 10 kilometres to go, but he still had the legs for the final sprint. Big performance right there. I have a feeling Van Aert will be paying particularly close attention to that too. Talking about the Belgium champ, Laporte and Van Aert weren't the only ones to celebrate holding hands this week either. Joseph Cerny and Remy Cavagna crossed the line in similar fashion on the final stage at Bartali. Cerny had jumped clear solo with 20 kilometres to go on the stage, whereas Cavagna leapfrogged across to him in the final 3 kilometres, dropping Omar Goldstein of Israel's startup nation in the process, who settled for 3rd on the day. Eddie Dunbar finished safely inside the peloton, meaning that he claimed the first GC win of his career. The Irishman winning the overall by 9 seconds over Tullett, and with Mark Hirschi 24 seconds back in 3rd. A big win for Dunbar and a deserved one too. After so much attacking riding in recent years, he has never been one to shy away from taking a race on, and it's cool to see him getting rewards for such a style. That wasn't all the racing we had last week though. We also had fast and furious racing over in France with the Roue Tourangelle one-day race. Finishing the cathedral city of Tours, the peloton would face 202 kilometres of undulating open roads. The wind decided not to blow, same as in Panne, on what was a fair spring day, but still there was really aggressive racing in the final 50 kilometres, with plenty of attacks and an extremely depleted bunch by the finish. Brian Coquard went on the offensive over the last climb with 11 kilometres to go, going clear in a group of 6 that included Clement Venturini from AG2R. They would be brought back inside 2 kilometres to go on the tight city centre loop. FDJ pulled out a perfect lead out for Dutchman Bram Welton. However, he didn't quite have the legs and settled for 6th. It would be Nasser Bahani, though, who absolutely dominated the sprint, taking home his first win of the season for Arkea Samsic after an impressive podium finish in Milan-Torino and Panne too. Incredibly, that wasn't the last race to talk about either. GP Industria took place on Sunday in Italy. Diego Ulissi of UAE took the win ahead of Alessandro Fedeli of the Italian national team and Xandro Maurice of Alpecin Fenix in 3rd. Phew, what a week of racing. Moving on to other news now that happened during the week, and Tom Pidcock's early season road campaign has been set back. The recent cyclocross world champion from Fayetteville has been struggling to get on top of a mysterious stomach issue that has plagued the early part of his season. He pulled out of Milan-San Remo last Saturday after having to stop for an emergency toilet break. An expensive loo break too, as it earned poor Tom a fine from the UCI as a result. Pidcock did start in Wevelgem though, finishing in 67th place, but appears to still be struggling with the issue as it hampers his racing. We wish you back to full health soon, Tom. Likewise to Cofidis' German sprinter Max Walscheid. He was hit by a car head-on whilst out training last Thursday on his local roads. He was airlifted to hospital after a car apparently suddenly swerved into his path. According to the German, luckily he doesn't seem to have sustained serious injury despite being kept in hospital under observation. Walscheid rued the fact that his recent spell of good form was disrupted, but mostly felt lucky to be alive, stating to media that it was beyond belief that he didn't sustain worse injuries. We wish him all the best from us here at GCN and really hope to see you back racing soon, Max. Alexei Lushenko was also the victim of a bad crash during the week. He fractured his collarbone and shoulder in a training incident down Mount Teed and appears to be now out for a number of weeks and will miss the Ardennes Classic as a result. He's flown to Belgium today for surgery to correct his injuries. Tony Martin is commendably auctioning off his 2012 Olympic silver medal for the RTL We Help Children campaign, which aims to help Ukrainian children and families caught up in the horrific ongoing conflict. He describes it as the biggest trophy of his career, but felt like he needed to do something to try to help. Bidding currently stands at €9,800, and if you want to put a bid in for yourself, you can find the link in the description below. Fair play to you, Tony, on that one. Lastly, illness appears to be sweeping through the pro peloton with a whole host of abandons as a result, most notably at Volta Catalunya. Simon Yates, Richie Port, Tom Dumoulin, Mikhail Kwiatkowski, Fausto Masnada, all big-name riders, in addition to many more who had to go home early. It appears that non-COVID-related illness has been a major setback for many as racing and the world around it gets back to normal this season. Chloe Dicott of Canyon SRAM is another whose whole season appears to be on the ropes after contracting Epstein-Barr virus. The American will now spend 1 to 2 months off the bike in a bid to fully recover, a major setback after the time missed last year following additional surgery to her left leg in a bid to fully rehabilitate injury sustained at that horror crash at the Imola Worlds. What's coming up next in terms of racing? So much covered this past week and it doesn't stop there. It really is non-stop at the moment. The big one to look out for, of course, next week will be the second monument of the season, the Tour of Flanders, the Ronde van Vlaanderen, next Sunday. We'll have that available to watch live on GCN+, both men's and women's races for you all in Europe and Asia Pacific, excluding China, Australia and New Zealand. Apart from that, we'll also have the final build-up to that race for men and women with Tour of Vlaanderen live for those of you in Europe and Asia Pacific on the 30th of March, excluding China, New Zealand and Australia for the men and also excluding Belgium for the women. We've also got Volta Limburg Classic available to watch worldwide on the 2nd of April, excluding the USA and Canada. Plus, there is the GP Michael Indurain on the same day too. That's available worldwide with no restrictions. Before I leave you though, don't forget to check out the latest documentary up on GCN Plus, How to Win Flanders. Dan heads over to Belgium to ride in his favourite region. And here's a little sneak peek.
Go on, Dan! They all helped me devise 10 commandments for victory at the Tour of Flanders.
You don't need good luck to win the Tour of Flanders, but you need to have no bad luck.
Tour of Flanders, it's up, down, left, turn, take position. That's, for me, the most beautiful race.
They call Johan Museeuw the Lion of Flanders. This man eats cobbles for breakfast.
Welcome in Flanders, beautiful Flanders. We're coming now in the steepest part.
I've got an old nemesis to conquer. Not my finest hour, I think it's safe to say. It's a race that's rich in history and culture and heritage, and I bloody love it.
An incredible watch right there, really enjoyed that one, and such amazing insight into how to win one of the toughest races of the season. The Ronde van Vlaanderen really is kind of a day of celebration in Belgium cycling. The whole country just stops. And I can't wait to watch the race myself on Sunday. But that is all we have time for this week though, folks. Thanks for watching, enjoy the racing, and we hope you find a nice quiet place to bunker down and watch the Ronde on Sunday. Oh, best race of the year. Thanks for watching, everyone.